MakerDAO.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the MakerDAO Meet Your Delegate meeting, the first MakerDAO Meet Your Delegate meeting, I should say, Meet Your Delegates meeting. Yeah, my name is LongForWisdom. I'm the one of the governance facilitators at MakerDAO. I'm joined here by a group of people, Maker people, and our first delegates, which is very exciting. So today we're going to have hopefully a couple of delegates, maybe just one, depends on the timing. But we're going to start off with Paper Imperium, and then time depending, we'll have elpro come on as well. And yeah, so to briefly go over the format of these meetings, so this is a chance for the delegates to introduce themselves, give sort of a brief summary of their platform, things they care about, and then answer any questions from you fine folks that have joined us. And we will record these meetings as well and put them up on YouTube for future generations. Cool. All right. So with that, I mean, Chris, do you want to introduce yourself? Do you need share permissions? I think you do, right?
I mean, it'll probably show me if I talk, right?
Yep. I meant like if you had any slides or anything.
No. I'm just gonna.
Perfect.
A little
yeah,
underprepared, I guess. I didn't realize I was expected to have slides.
No, whatever you want.
Yeah, so first, my name is Chris Cameron of Field Technologies. I am known on the forum as Paper Imperium, and I am here to present myself as a delegate for anyone interested in delegating some or all of their MKR voting power. So just to begin, I want to talk about the three main areas of challenge that I see before Maker that need some address. So the first is that we need to integrate better with the real world. And this falls under several different areas. The one that's at the foremost of everyone's mind today probably is regulation. And this can be divided into probably three main areas with the EU, which is looking fairly hostile at the moment, but perhaps we can change their minds. The US, which I've already started trying to get some low-level engagement going with the US and other North American entities. And then, of course, Asia-Pacific are the other major developed markets that look like they could potentially begin to exert more regulatory control. Other parts of the world do not seem so aggressive at the moment with regulation, so we will deal with them as they come. This is something that we need to develop strong messaging. We need to develop a plan to actually interact with the bodies that regulate financial markets in these countries. That includes and is not limited to, obviously, the Fed, Bank of Canada, the ECB. We've already started to reach out at some low levels with, at least with researchers for some information sharing with Bank of Canada and the Bank of International Settlements, who most people are probably more familiar with the Basel regulatory guidelines that they provide to banking systems around the world. The next thing that we need to do to integrate into the real world is we need better access to financial markets. This is something that's being actively worked on by lots of people at the DAO right now, and I'm confident that we will be able to have lots of tools in our toolbox to access things like fixed income, financing to banks, or even the ability for us to be able to borrow or engage in hedging activities. We can get more into that offline or later if anybody has any questions. And then, of course, socially, we are not integrated anywhere. There's not really a constituency anywhere in the world that's going to mourn our demise other than crypto Twitter should anything happen to us. And I suspect not even all of them would shed a tear for us. That's something we need to work on. And we need to, Maker has done a great job pivoting to more sustainable business practices. But we do need to refocus at some point on how Maker can achieve its original social mission. And that's going to take some thought and execution to land that one correctly, because that's probably the one we're the furthest behind on. And it's one that's being ignored right now. And I know I personally don't talk much about it, but we do need to come back to it at some point. and build a constituency of people that want to use us and also want to see us succeed. The next issue is we need to work on scale and competition. We, thankfully, at the moment, seem to be flying under the radar of regulators, those who have been following research, recent publishing out of research institutions, both academic and government, as well as discussions, policy discussions that have been going on. Luckily, Maker and DAI do not seem to be included in those discussions, which is good at the moment. We do not seem to fit what lawmakers and academics consider a stable coin, because we're not redeemable for fiat. We have a very different business model, and it means that when you look at papers that have been published recently, they include stable coins of much smaller market cap and much smaller reach than us. The good news is that means we're not in the regulatory crosshairs just yet. The bad news is we need to make sure that they are aware of us and that we don't get swept up with different business models that might be more financially fragile. The next thing is, of course, scaling DAI. We need organic demand. Differentiation is, other than price, we've got to work on this. I know growth has been going full throttle, and they've been doing great work to get DAI in front of more people. But at the end of the day, we need, our product is not really vaults, our product is DAI. We need to figure out more ways to generate it than just the PSM and vaults, right? Because for vaults, it's a lending product, a financing product. And at the end of the day, that's a commodity. And so we can only compete on price at the end of the day. So we don't have control over that, and we will never have control over that. I know people like to think that we can lower the rates on vaults to increase supply, but that's also going to increase demand. And when it comes to capital inflows and outflows to DAI, we need to come up with some alternative ways to generate it. We also need to have prudent, speaking of capital flows, we need to have prudent management of these. Right now, I think everyone is aware of the elephant in the room, is that we have more than $3.1 billion in USDC sitting in the PSM. I don't think any of us want that there. I think we would be foolish to, and probably unable to, unwind that, but we can control the composition of these. We're running a currency here, correct? And it has a fixed exchange rate. We're going to have limited control over, if we're going to defend the peg successfully, we have limited control over how much is going to pile up inside the PSM or be drained from it as capital flows in and out of DAI compared to other US dollar denominated or US dollar equivalent assets. Right now, DAI is in demand. It's a great problem to have, right? First world problem. I think any country that has a fixed exchange rate would love to have the problem of too much in the way of foreign reserves piled up, and try to find a way to reduce the credit risk associated with the undiversified way in which we hold it. We are working on that, especially if we can gain access to the fixed income markets, either directly or indirectly, then we can try to get direct exposure to fiat or fiat equivalents rather than having the intermediary of USDC. So that's our second area, scaling and competition, differentiation, and prudent management of risk of the reserves that we hold. The third is that we need to, as Maker grows, we're beginning to attract more talent. We're still short of manpower, and person power, but we do need to start having an eye towards more internal responsibility and best practices. Key among these is just the principle of separation of duties and powers. So we need to make sure that risk assessments are separated from internal advocates. Just as a bank does not, the loan officer and the underwriter are not the same person. We need to do that as well. We need to separate the stability buffer from our operating cash. So that it's clear how much of which one is earmarked for expenses and how much is actually the buffer. As it is now, if we are in this situation where if we are losing money, then we are increasing risk by by draining the stability buffer. So we need to correct that. That's more of an accounting issue, but it's important that we get that one right. We also need to have monitoring separate from cash and control decisions. So we probably need to spin out financial reporting into its own core unit or team, so that it's separate from any operations. We don't want anyone who has operational discretion or operational decision-making capacity to be in charge of actual flows of cash or the accounting of that cash when possible. That's just a standard best practice. So that's the third area we need to work on, internal reforms. So we need to integrate better with the real world markets. We need to scale and differentiate ourselves from competitors. And we also need to make sure that as we internally grow, we do so in a way that is responsible and makes the organization less fragile. And I'll take questions now.
I'm happy to be the first victim, I guess. Awesome. Thanks for putting together this presentation. As to your last point about the separation of powers, I know you do have a core unit currently in RFC, so I was wondering how you would manage that as a recognized delegate.
That's a wonderful question. So I am on record as saying that people should not be their own bosses. So in the case of the Maker portfolio core unit, if it gets up and running and delegation becomes an active thing that takes off, then I would probably, I already have some eyes on people that I would try to hand that unit off to be the facilitator for it. It's a small unit. It's really just to sign some paperwork and do some low-level monitoring. Yeah, it would not be appropriate for me to, in the long run, fill both roles. So I can't say it would happen immediately because it's a new core unit that needs to get up and running. But I would not foresee holding both positions in the long run, a few months at most.
Yeah, anyone, I guess, feel free to jump in. Questions don't have to be related specifically to the things Chris has already spoken about. It's kind of anything you care about as a holder of MKR tokens that you might want to ask Chris about.
I have a question. Hello, Chris. Well, it's a couple of questions. One will be, how are you going to let know the people that are delegating MKR on you what is going to be your next vote or opinion, apart from reading you in the forums? And the other question I have is, what do you think about alternatives to DAI, like peg to the euro or other currencies?
Yeah, great question. So I guess the first one's the easiest. I am generally going to make myself as available as possible. Maker is taking up more and more of my time, so it's my main priority at the moment. Anyone that delegates or just wants to hear my thoughts, I'll have a weekly summary available for everybody. And of course, my email, my Signal, and my Telegram will be open for anybody that wants to have more private conversations. So whatever people are willing to communicate with me, I will be happy to listen to and respond to. Second question was alternative DAIs like Euro DAI, right? Okay, so I think this is something we're gonna need to move into. And at the moment, I think it's just a matter of bandwidth. I am not sure that it needs to be our top priority, but it is something we do need to be moving on, especially with major currencies like perhaps yen, sterling, euros. These major international currencies. These are things that we can get a first or second mover advantage on. The U.S. stablecoin market is much more crowded, obviously, yeah, I would say it needs to be on the to-do list. I agree. I don't know that it needs to be our absolute top priority, but I am, as always, open to changing my mind as more information is given to me.
Anyone else have anything they're curious about?
Yeah, I've got a question. Hey, everyone. Something I'd like to hear about from each of the candidates is, there's been some discussion, with the launch of delegation about the potential for political parties to develop at some point. Totally understand it's, pretty early to do much speculation around that, but do you have any opinions at this point about how you would handle that development? Would you support the development of political parties in MakerDAO, or would you perhaps, like, as a matter of principle, prefer to stay independent? Any thoughts?
I don't generally think political parties bring a positive. I don't generally feel that they are a positive development for political systems. In this particular case, we are dealing with a lot of technical decisions, and I really don't think ideology has a lot of ideological commitments have a lot of place in running Maker. That said, there are certainly some issues that I could see sympathizing or voting with parties. I would certainly work with, if people chose to form a party, I would certainly work with them. But I have no intention of starting or joining one.
Adding a little bit on that, Chris, do you foresee the need for you to maybe start recruiting contributors to help you actually overview the DAO and the different core units and make sure that people are being held accountable to what they say they're doing or what they're actually doing? Or do you see it more as this is a hands-off task and everyone should self-report and that's the end of the mandate?
That's a great question. So I think that comes back to, I feel strongly that we need more separation of reporting and decision-making, monitoring and decision-making. Just as I should not be my own boss, people should not be their own policeman. That works for now. You know, we don't have a deep bench to pull from, but I would love to see, you know, functions related to accounting, internal controls, just monitoring in general of internal metrics, see that spun out into its own core unit. I don't have opinions about what exactly that would look like, how big it would need to be. But I think that's something that should be on the roadmap, and at least in the next 12 months, I think that's a certainty that we need independent internal watchdogs. Gov Alpha right now, you know, they have to be neutral about things. We need someone who can make recommendations and raise alarm bells. Yes.
And as a delegate, your intention would be to campaign for those things, but not do them directly yourself, correct?
That's correct. I don't see myself being directly involved in any core unit. If delegation, I get any significant amounts of Maker delegated to me and I'm active on the delegate scene, I'm not going to be inside a core unit.
Got a follow-up question. Also something I'd like to hear all of the candidates share their opinions on, but what are your thoughts on pay for delegates?
I think it probably needs to happen. It should be less than core unit facilitators, I think. But it's not a small amount of time to stay on top of things. So I would say it needs to be enough to pay for people to pay attention, but and so that people, otherwise this is going to be a rich man's game, right? We don't want that. But I don't think it should be on the same scale as most core unit facilitator salaries are.
Makes sense. Thank you.
So I'll perhaps jump in with the general one from the backup list. What do you feel are sort of the biggest challenge? I guess you kind of talked about like the three things we need to focus on, but like, are they the sort of biggest challenges you see like ever for Maker, right? Like, are there any other challenges you think we're going to face like in the future that are sort of going to be bigger or more, like more impactful?
So at some point, if Maker is successful, we are going to get to the point where we will be so systemically involved in the world economy that there are going to be people that don't like that. And I'm not exactly sure yet what we should do about that, but part of my plan at the beginning is at least to begin holding government debt securities so that Maker cannot be targeted too aggressively without creating a credit event for large regulators. Beyond that, I don't have a thoughtful response, but I think if all goes well, then in 5 years, that's going to be the discussion we're having is how do we deal with central banks that may have to begin viewing us as at least a junior peer.
Great, thank you. Anyone else?
I'll go. It's sort of from our list of questions as well, but I think you were already sort of bringing up an idea about the the surplus buffer and how that corresponds to basically our spend, right? So I'd love for you to maybe unpack that a little bit more, because I feel like that was the seed of a really good idea, and maybe it'd be nice to have that out in the world.
Yeah, so I can't take credit for being the first to voice it. I think Will from Real World Finance first voiced it, a desire to see this out on the forums, and it's something I've been thinking about and was glad I've now seen multiple people mention. Yeah, so the whole point of the surplus buffer is to be a buffer, right? We have to make sure that I have to make sure first that DAI is secure, and then backed up by maker holders, right? And it's hard to plan for these things. Number one, it's hard to plan a budget if we're commingling all of our funds. And secondly, especially as we come under more intense scrutiny from the outside that is going to look to regulate us, the more we're already complying with best practices of segregating money that's supposed to be a buffer from our spending cash. The more we're already behaving well, the less likely they are to come after us, in my opinion. Perhaps that won't be true, but it's also just a best practice, right? You know, if we decide that we need a certain amount of DAI as a buffer, well, we need to have that. It needs to be off the one side, and then the money that we operate out of needs to come out of the other, right? Because it's a bigger decision to deficit spend out of your piggy bank than it is out of your insurance rainy day fund, right? So yeah, how that would be implemented, I've not thought through completely about any details about it, and I'm happy to hear other people's opinions about the timetable and exact mechanisms for doing that.
All right, perhaps a sort of more wider-ranging question. So one of the ones we have down is sort of, you know, where do you land about DAI on other blockchains, and like the other protocol as a whole on other blockchains? Do you think that's something we should be prioritizing, something we should be backburning?
So in principle, I think DAI should be everywhere, including at some point in the far distant future, a way to figure out a way to get it into the physical world as well. As far as each blockchain and each spot, I'm going to defer to people who know more about each of those places than I do. So I would be deferring to risk and protocol engineering and oracles for any particular ecosystem for us to be actively pushing DAI into or generating DAI.
I mean, I'm just pulling from this great list of questions that I believe GovAlpha assembled. The last one I can think of that you actually spoke to in the first place really elegantly on the forum was on governance process, mostly through a debate on recent fees change. So do you, I think you had the beginnings of some great ideas there as well. Do you feel like there's some low-hanging fruit on governance processes that could be maybe adapted or changed, or another team that should maybe be presented?
So I want to give a more thoughtful response than I can give right here. So yes, there are changes I would like to see. This is getting deep into the weeds. So anyone interested should probably reach out to me individually.
I was more looking.
Yeah.
Sorry, my fault. Forget Zoom sometimes. I was more looking for, did you think there were any easy wins for the governance process that we might be missing or something like that? So that makes sense that you want to be thoughtful. So thanks. All good.
All right. I think we'll call this the final call for questions for Chris before we maybe move on. Okay, cool. So we've got one in the sidebar. Andrew asking, how would you prioritize collateral risk versus keeping the peg / DAI supply? For example, as an example, to reduce reliance on USDC.
Right. So our number one goal is to make sure that the fixed exchange rate of one DAI for $1 is maintained. Without that, we don't have a product. You know, our product is DAI. Anybody can provide financing, but DAI has to maintain its face value and not significantly for any period of time trade above or below. And the longer we do that, the cheaper it is to defend the peg. And you'll see today that we've had significant inflows into the PSM now. So the thing to remember is that our collaterals and vaults, that's akin to organic demand. And there's a limit to how far we can push that. People have to want that service, which is why it's important to come up with alternative methods of getting DAI into existence, preferably ones that generate fees. But I mean, I guess I would have to, depends what kind of collateral we're talking about, right? Because there's lots of different stuff. But the peg is always number one. We don't have a business without the peg.
All right, thank you. Maybe we've got time for one more quick one if anyone has one. If not, we'll move on.
Thank you, everybody, for having me. And feel free to reach out offline if you want to talk more details.
Perfect. Yeah, huge thank you to you, Chris, for coming on and doing this. And yeah, and putting yourself forward as a recognized delegate. Great. OK. Well, that brings us to our second delegate of the evening, for me, anyway. Yeah, so ElPro, Frank, feel free to introduce yourself.
Cool, thank you. I wasn't sure if I was gonna get my 15 minutes of fame, so I didn't put on a tie, shirt and tie, so I apologize for that. I do have a little presentation if you allow me to.
Oh, sure, yeah, let me make you co-host.
Small one, I won't take too much time.
Juan, I need you to do that, I think.
Yeah, so while that's happening, I'll introduce myself. I think I can. All right, cool. Share this. Cool. So yeah, I represent Flip Flop Flap Delegate LLC, inspired by, of course, Flip, Flop, and Flap, which is my favorite. Surplus auctions, probably everybody's, but we won't go there. So yeah, the Ethereum address is flapper.eth. Hopefully I've made the right decision by naming it that, but we shall see. And a little bit about myself. I was born in ElProgreso, Honduras, hence why on the forums I'm known as ElProgreso, and on Rocket Chat, ElPro. And if I didn't mention, my government name is Frank Cruz. Yeah, but if I could be named all over, I guess I would be named ElPro. So more of a background about myself. I have 14 years experience in working in TradeFi. I was down in Wall Street as an advisor, not happy, pushing stocks, bonds, a little bit of commodities, mutual funds, the boring stuff. And after 14 years, I called it quits. I took a 2-year sabbatical. And around 2011, a friend of mine, a really good friend of mine, had told me about Bitcoin, but I kind of just shrugged it off because I just didn't get it. And plus, he told me I had to open an account in Japan, and yeah, it just wasn't going to happen. So after my sabbatical, I started working with a good friend of mine who opened a document management software company based in Houston, Texas. And he wanted myself and another friend to open an office here in New York City. We did that. Did some sales. It was fun. The cloud came into the picture, and that actually helped a lot. But in around the 2017 bull run, my brother, who I had told a long time ago about Bitcoin, called me up and told me, "Hey, have you seen this thing, Bitcoin and Ethereum?" And I looked at the chart real quick. It was, pointing at the sky. I kind of knew it was a little bit too high, so I waited it out. And in the crypto winter of 2018. Probably late 2018, I heard a podcast with Rune Christensen on Unchained, and it actually took 2 episodes for the host to record it with Rune because it was so complicated to understand, and I just became so excited. And I Googled MakerDAO, and I joined the party, so to speak, in January 2019. Since then, I've been one of the most active voters since the release of multi-collateral DAI in January 2020. I probably have voted now over 200 times. I like to think, maybe less, maybe 150. And I'm also very, very active on the speculation channel on Rocket Chat. One of the things I like to do is I like to keep the community kind of buzzing if I can. Sometimes, unfortunately, I have to shit post, but I like to keep things alive. And during the crypto winter, I think one of my favorite things to do was to keep myself inspired, right? Because I decided to get away from the 9 to 5 and get into cryptocurrencies full time. And what I like to do is I like to listen to a lot of inspirational talks by the great founders of the past and present. And I like to take quotes and break them down. Mike Maples Jr. is actually from Floodgate, one of my favorite. He just has some magical words sometimes that inspires you. My activity in the Maker Forum, yeah, I've tried a bunch of things, like in the DeFi summer of 2020, I already was thinking about running DAI on different chains, pretty much because, yeah, it was getting really painful, right? When they released Yearn Finance and gas prices were going through the roof, and Compound also had started the party, kicked it off. So I was already thinking on different chains. I had followed other chains like Near and Solana, Polkadot, Cosmos. Oh man, I remember Cosmos. I went to their release party back in 2019. I had no idea what it was, but I was there, didn't buy the token, so I missed out. But anyway, so all these chains I have always followed because I always like to look at what's the next big thing, right? Not sure if they will be, so this is not financial advice, but yeah, so I follow them. I've done other things, like I already had a feeling that USDT was a little bit odd. I mean, I'm not the only one. There were many people, so I've done signals requests that fail, like delist USDT. I've also thought about using USDC to stabilize the peg. So I did put a MIP6 application that's still in the works, right, a year later. And I believe it's actually finally going to come into fruition. But I was asking if we can use USDC as a collateral type. So yeah, those are the way my brain's always thinking, because I pretty much do this 24/7, even on a Sunday. So here's my commitment to you. I'm running as Flip Flop Flat Delegate. Again, it's an LLC based in Delaware. In order to be in MKR governance, you have to be fully focused. And what I mean by that is you have to keep up with everything that's posted, all the discussions, attend the meetings, and this is my commitment also off chain. But on chain, I promise you that I will vote no matter what. Holidays, weekends, flying through the world, I will definitely be there to cast a vote on behalf of you. So it doesn't matter, rain or shine, any weather, Flip Flop Flap Delegate will hold the Maker family together. All right, remember that. And again, as far as off-chain, it's just not about going to the Gov and risk meeting. It's also about attending the small meetings that some folks might not be attending right now. Some of the content core unit meetings are pretty awesome. The SCS on Friday is one of my favorites, right? Because it kicks off the weekend. PE has their meeting on Tuesdays, which I like to attend, even though sometimes it gets a little super technical, but you learn a lot. So this is what it takes to be a delegate, in my opinion. And also, obviously, talking to the risk people, right? To trying to catch up on what their thinking is and being close to them, each individual. And not only just being on the forum and the Rocket Chat and Reddit, but also listening to podcasts of other protocols, right? So there might be an interview with Kane of SNX. I think it'd be good for you to listen to it. That way you can kind of keep up what's going on in DeFi. So that's my commitment to you, because this is what I do. So whether you decide to delegate to me or you don't, I'm going to continue doing it. I'm going to continue voting, and I'm going to continue to push to be the best delegate that I can be. So my final takeaway from this, and I want you to consider this, because I don't have the right answers if delegating will work or not. But I like to look at it this way, right? Maker governments right now, it's pretty slow. Recently, the core units were trying to get paid, and they had to wait forever just to get executive vote to pass. And it broke my heart, not because I know they're going homeless or anything like that, but because it was just taking so long, and it was a little bit embarrassing, right? So when you delegate to someone like myself, like Paper, or the other future delegates like Tim Black, I think we're going to get things done faster. I do believe that maker governments should be faster. I also believe that we're going to fall behind if we take forever just to get through one executive to the next, or one green light poll to the next. We're going to fall behind, and you're going to see other stable coins out there like UST, someone like FEI, right? FEI. I don't know how you pronounce it, but you know, these guys, they got really smart people that are working there. Believe me, they're looking to make an impact. They're hungry, and they're working right now. So I think we all know that. Also, not to take too much time here, but I also want to have the community think about living in the future like I do, right? I'm always looking for the next big thing. I'm always looking for the next possible integration, even though I don't know how to code, but I'm always thinking of ideas and ways where we can make things work better when it comes to MakerDAO and DAI. As Mike Maples likes to say, a great decision made too late is the same thing as a bad decision. So I want to be in the forefront of whatever happens with DeFi and also real world assets, which I'm a huge proponent on. That's no secret. So I'm going to be pushing for RWAs. I don't have the answer for which type of trust or SPV structure should be the right one, but I do believe that we should try all of them. And as Mike Maples likes to say, you got to think in bets, right? If you make a bet, you got to think of what your future outcome is. Is it a large upside, or is it a small upside, or is it going to be a huge upside? So yeah, that's pretty much my pitch. And always remember, greatness is a decision.
All right.
That's a whole lot. So sorry about that, but
no, that was awesome. Thank you, Frank. Yeah. If anyone has any questions, please feel free.
Hi, Frank. I'm Rafael from the DAX core unit. I would like to ask you, what do you think about having Maker on other layers, on other side chains? What's your opinion on that?
Hola, Rafael. Yeah, totally. So a while back, I actually went out on my own and reached out, and foolishly, but I was kind of bored. I reached out to someone like Anatoly of Solana and try to get his idea how DAI could be, taken from the Ethereum into a blockchain, a layer one that's not EVM compatible, unfortunately. Silly me, but we had a couple of ideas, and he was even had an idea that maybe even the Solana Foundation was willing to fund something that could get DAI into Solana, right? I also checked out a lot of the Near forums to see what they were doing. They were building the Rainbow Bridge, which was great. I stayed on top of that. But as far as layer twos like Optimism, Arbitrum, and Starkware, I'm super excited about that. I myself already are testing it out. I believe that it's going to be huge. If we can get someone like Rainbow Wallet to allow users to directly go from their bank accounts to Optimism and have some DAI in, I wanted to say Compound, but they're not going there. But someone like Uniswap, where maybe they could somehow use their DAI and split it between USD and DAI and kind of take minimal risk, that would be great for the early beginners. I do have more of a vision that I want everyday people, everyday Jane and everyday Joe, to have access to interest in their accounts, because I do believe that the banks are, with inflation, they're going to continue to lose the ability to make money on their money. So DeFi is definitely needed for the average Joe and Jane. So I do hope that wallets like Linen, even though they're not really controlling their own asset, I do hope they do take off, and I hope wallets like Linen do prosper. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
Hey, Frank, I want to ask the same question to you as I asked Chris. What do you think about the development of political parties in MakerDAO, and what are your thoughts on pay for delegates?
Yeah, so that's actually something I was going to put into my slides, because I am worried that we are going to get political parties or maybe delegates bonding together and taking the DAO in a certain direction. So I am worried about that. And really, because I think that it's going to be hard for outsiders to come in and say, hey, I want to do a content core unit as well. Because I myself am guilty of it, right? I trust you, Seth, more than I would, the next Joe that comes in, only because I know you're passionate about this. I know you're a MakerDAO community member. So I am worried a bit about possibly delegates colluding and possibly not allowing a new company or new team to come in and establish a core unit. But I myself have, corrected myself and said, hey, we can't let this happen, right? In order for us to grow, I hope that someone like SES can incubate a lot of brand new people that I've never met, that we can trust, that SES can put them through the ringer, so to speak. And once they show that they are committed to the MakerDAO community way, that they're going to not only bring great services and product to MakerDAO, but also us as community members, we're going to trust them, and there won't be a need for us to establish political parties. So I'm definitely, that's something I do worry about. And, I plan on definitely speaking out if I see that. So you have my word on that. As far as compensation, in my opinion, politicians shouldn't really get paid much. They should get paid whatever they need as far as, I don't know, buying shirt and ties, I guess. So should we get compensated? More than likely, we should get some kind of stipend, right? Just for the time that we spend here. I myself, I plan on doing some YouTube videos. So I'll be reaching out to your team to kind of explain why I voted a certain way or campaign a certain way, because I have a flip-flop delegate YouTube channel. So hopefully you guys will check it out. So yeah, if we get paid 50 DAI a week, so be it. It's not going to make a difference to me.
Gotcha. Thanks for answering. And yeah, we'd certainly be happy to help you and any of the other candidates who are interested in help. If you want to put out specific kinds of content, we're open to that for everyone. So
that's awesome. Thanks, man. Cool. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
So Juan's having some connectivity issues, but he did pass me a question through Telegram, kind of on the lines of you mentioned in your presentation. I think it's pretty observable, Frank. You're a very positive, very encouraging guy. Juan was curious if you've ever voted against a proposal, or there's something you haven't supported from the maker community, and if you had an example of that.
Executive or green light? Green light, yeah, I've voted against a few of them. If I had to think back, it had to be probably a token that I felt was either centralized or felt there was some risk to the DAO. As far as executives, no, I don't think I ever voted against an executive. That is the honest truth. I think any executive that got to that point through a rigorous governance process didn't deserve to get voted down, in my opinion. I could be wrong about that. But yeah, I've definitely voted against some green light polls. Unfortunately, there was a third-party marketing company that recently came by, and yeah, that definitely was a no for me. So yeah, absolutely. If I have to say no, I will say no. I'm not always going to be a yes, yes, yes. Definitely have to say no.
I thought the communication question that was posed to Chris earlier was a pretty good one. Like, do you have a plan for how you intend to communicate your votes? Or you mentioned your YouTube channel, but is that something we can expect to see weekly, or how do you plan to kind of tell your delegates where you'll be putting their MKR?
Yeah, I'm going to do it weekly, and I'm also going to do the forum. So I'll post on the forum. I'm more of a visual person myself, so I am excited about doing it on YouTube. Also thinking of maybe bringing on someone like Tim or Paper on, and we can kind of debate, on the YouTube channel, or hopefully align with what the maker community wants, right? But yeah, that should be fun. And yeah, that's why I need the help of people like Jerry G, right? Because we might need some beats in there to introduce the flip-flop delegate show.
So I think Mika posted something in the sidebar.
Yeah, I can ask it directly as well.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, so maybe a bit related to the previous question, and maybe after the call, I'd love to hear it from Christopher as well. if now isn't the right time, but do you maybe have like an example of a vote or a situation or a community discussion where maybe you went against the grain or had some like strong opinion that was slightly different, even slightly different from the majority, something that maybe directionally, shows how your shows like your philosophy on the future of MakerDAO? Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, that's a great question, Mika. Yeah. So this actually, Chris, and you can join in after me, because when the Marcom's unit, our marketing unit, first stepped in and they proposed to become a core unit, they had a 5 million moonshot deal, which I kind of had a feeling, and I'm a huge sports fan, was related to that. And I got excited about it. And thinking back, I was probably wrong after speaking to a couple of community members who probably voted no as well, because it failed, the first proposal. I got excited about it because I felt that if we could get the DAI emblem out there in front of millions of people, that people will get excited, right? I'm a New Yorker. I ride the New York City subway, and I can't tell you how many times I see these new fintech banks advertising on the New York City subway. Every single subway ride that I take, they're on there and they're making moves. They're building, they're raising money, they got product, their advertisement is funny, it catches the eye. So I got a little excited there. The surplus buffer was looking great, and I felt that a moonshot could work. Maybe it shouldn't have been 5 million. Maybe it could have been 1 million DAI. But if we could have got DAI on a 4 million one car, and I'm just for me it would have been more like American sports, but a 4 million one car, I think it would have been a great way to get the DAI name out there, recognized. But thinking back, I was wrong. I was wrong about that. So yeah, there are times when I vote for something, campaign for something, that I will be wrong. But Chris, yeah, you can tell them why you felt it was wrong.
I'll be respectful of your time here and just quickly say my great fear is actually that I'll be viewed as an obstructionist. So if you'd like a more detailed answer, I think voice unpopular opinions that have also been privately expressed to me quite a bit, but I won't take up Frank's time to go into the details.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. So Mika, to answer your question, yeah, I looking back on it, it probably wasn't the right proposal structure. So if I could do it all over again, I probably would have reached out to the Marcom teams, because I did initially reach out to them, try to ask them how I can help get their campaign going and hopefully get some MKR voters. So yeah, and that's what I plan to do in the future. If we have some campaigns that are, you can tell they're kind of 49, 51%, 50-50, I'm going to reach out to my Maker community brothers and sisters and ask them, hey, what exactly do you feel on this? Why do you feel this way? Why don't you feel this way?
Walter, do you want to go ahead and ask yours?
Yes, definitely. My question is, will you be reaching out proactively to large MKR holders to align your position with their vision?
Currently, I might just reach out by Twitter to get them to vote. But if you're saying in the near future, or will I be doing that? Yeah, absolutely. I would love to. If they allow me to and they welcome me to reach out to them and hear them out. Yeah, I do want to be able to talk to the smallest MKR token holder to the largest. Every voice to me is important. But absolutely, I'll definitely be reaching out to your team. I'll tell you that much, because I think you got some very brilliant people there, including yourself and Juan. But as far as the large Maker holders, huge brilliant people there that I admire too. So if they can kind of give me what they believe is the best path for a decentralized stablecoin named DAI that's going to take us to the next level, that's going to take us to the next future, then absolutely. I would love to talk to them. I would love for them to reach out to me and say, this is how we think about this. And, I won't have all the right answers, but I'll be able to tell them this is how I think about it. And eventually, place my vote. And at times I know that some of these large token holders and core units are going to be pretty busy, so I don't expect them to be available every single week or day, but I'm definitely going to be taking notes. I'm going to, I always follow what they do, right? I follow not only the core units here, but I follow a lot of our token holders that are public, that are known. And I kind of follow not only their social media, Twitter accounts, but also if they're on a podcast, I'm there, I'm listening to them. I'm kind of trying to gauge what exactly they're thinking, what they believe will be the next big step in this cryptocurrency world, in this decentralized finance world. So, so if I'm not able to reach them, I kind of know what direction they want to take the entire ecosystem.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, I'm not reading the sidebar long, so if there's a question there, I apologize.
No, so it probably comes up a little bit later. We maybe got time for a couple more questions before we wrap up. So if anybody wants to ask, feel free.
Yep, I have a quick question. Would you be open to get contacted for input on new UIs for the governance portal right now? We are working on the delegates. Would you be interested in participating in conversations?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you can reach me at Rocket Chat, at elpro, or at the forum. You can send me an email, or you can email me at elprodie@protonmail.com. So yeah, definitely. I actually started using it today. Long was asking us to set up the contract and everything. So yeah, it looks great. I think you guys have done a terrific job. But yeah, anything you need help with, let me know, and I'm here to help out.
Great, thank you. I'll maybe finish off with one from the list. A little more kind of, I guess maybe we'll have a hard one. Like the minting of MKR, like when do you think MKR should be minted, and why, I guess?
When Maker token holders and delegates now misbehave and don't govern I shouldn't say misbehave, but don't govern correctly the protocol. And we make an error, like we onboard a real estate company is looking to do a skyscraper in Idaho, and the skyscraper doesn't get any tenants, then it's not worth anything and it goes bankrupt, and we set up the wrong trust structure, and we have to eat the 32 million DAI loan. Then if we have to mint MKR, then there's a reason for that. I've also heard things like we're exposed to the USDC, right? Because the good folks, and I like to think they're good folks. I think they have the same. When I talk about these folks, they're Circle USDC. I think that they have the same vision as us. I think they want to be successful. They want to see DAI be successful. I've seen Jeremy Allaire talk so positively about DAI and how he's so amazed by what the MakerDAO community has done to take it this far. So I believe that everyone has good intentions. And when you go to one of these Ethereum conferences, you meet everyone and it's like, wow, everybody's pretty amazing, Sometimes we buck heads on Twitter or on the Maker Forum, what have you, but at the end of the day, we all have the same mission. And I've heard things where like, okay, well, what if Circle is going to freeze our USDC, our PSM USDC? What do we do? But, if we were to get into a situation like that and we have to mint some MKR, so be it. That's part of the business. That's the risk. That's the risk that we took. As Mike Maples likes to say, risk is real, but fear is a choice. And I think that the community has taken such an amazing risk by stabilizing the peg, which is, as Chris said, the most important thing, right? Keep the peg steady. It's been beautiful. I don't even look at it anymore. I mean, I have it sometimes when I turn on my laptop and it pops up and I barely even pay attention to it because, back in the days, it was like a little stressful watching the peg go to 101, 101, 101.5, 102. And now it's just a thing of beauty. So yeah, that's how I think about it. If we don't govern correctly, then MKR should be minted. I'll tell you, man, like 1 million MKR or 900,000 MKR or 1.2 million MKR, in my opinion, it's not going to change the price of the token. Most of the world doesn't even know that there's only like 900,000 and change MKR. They're not going to start buying it tomorrow morning just because there's 10,000 MKR less or 5,000 MKR less. That's just my opinion for markets, for being around markets. I think when there's a lot of excitement about MakerDAO and a lot of profits are coming in and DAI starts to become a household name, that's when you're going to see people, okay, yeah, I want to own Maker in my portfolio. And that's when they're going to go buy the token. So I'm not worried about if we have to mint, a couple of thousand, 5,000, because I'm not worried about that. At the same time, I don't want to, so don't get me wrong. I definitely don't want to because it'll be bad press for us. And it also, it won't be good, right? I went through Black Thursday like you guys did, and it wasn't fun. So yeah, I don't have a problem with it. And again, I do think that the time to mint it is when we obviously do the wrong thing. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, that was good. Thank you, Frank. All right, we can maybe think about wrapping up. We've had our hour and a little change. Yeah, so to Jerry's point in the sidebar, if any of the delegates that have been on want to share any of their handles, channels, Twitter, etc., and if they feel they haven't already, feel free.
Yeah, so again, I go by elpro on Rocket Chat. You can find me on Twitter at Cruiser DeFi, Cruiser CRUZ for zebra ER DeFi. You can also find me on the forum at ElProgreso, which is the name again of the town I was born in. So yeah, and you can also email me at elprodai at protonmail.com, elprodai at protonmail.com.
Great, thanks, Frank. Chris, do you want to shout out yours again, or all right?
Oh yes, so Paper Imperium is my handle on both the forum and in Rocket Chat. And my work email has been, for Field Technologies, has been dropped into the chat for those interested.
Great. Yeah, well, thank you to both of you for coming. Thank you to our audience for the questions. And yeah, hopefully we'll have another one of these either next week or the week after with the next set of delegates. So yeah, looking forward to that and hoping to see it go live on Monday.
That was a lot of fun. Thank you, everybody.
MakerDAO.